I don't want to mythologize this album, but it's in my top 3 Kendrick albums. I like it more than Good Kid, Mad City. I like it more than Section 80. It's way better than GNX. And it's one of Kendrick's worst selling albums ever. I think the real reason why this album, Mr. Morale, wasn't received so good and it sold so poorly was you can't get any pussy with this album. Like, I'm being so real. The world revolves around pussy. You know, wars have been fought, lives lost, and billions made off of the back of what lies between a woman's thighs. And let's be real here. You can't get any of it with this. You can't get any. United in Grief, Worldwide Steppers, We Cry Together, Crown, Mr. Morale, Mother I Sober. Like, these are all pussy repellents. Like, you put this on when you don't want hoes around. Like, I wouldn't call this a scaring the hoes album. I think that's a little bit harsh. But it does intimidate them. It definitely does. Like, I mean, let's say I'm fucking a bitch and, you know, I got some music playing. I got some Luther Vandross, some Keith Sweat, some Jodeci. And then I hit shuffle and Auntie Diary starts playing. Like, the pussy goes from to. All jokes aside, this album is musty, but it's a good kind of must. Bruh. It's dark, it's ugly, it's uncompromising, and it is unflinchingly experimental. And that's why I love it so much. I think the thing that makes this album so different from the rest of his catalog is that this is the first time Kendrick goes an entire album without rapping from another person's point of view. And I know Kendrick says multiple times on this album that he is not your savior. And well said. To be honest, I was a little bummed out the first time I heard Savior. Kind of because I wanted Kendrick to keep fighting the good fight, you know, for all of us. But then I realized, you know, it takes real revolutionaries to change things. It takes action. It doesn't come from listening to this. It doesn't come from even making this. This album, this is not the change we're looking for. The changes we're looking for require someone willing to die for their beliefs. And I figure if I wouldn't die on Kendrick's behalf, why should I expect Kendrick to die on my behalf? He's not my savior. So, there's this album called Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, and it's talking about a lot like therapy and mental health and depression. Some people say you don't need therapy. I was talking to a guy a while ago. He said he doesn't need therapy. Do you feel like therapy is needed? Do you feel like more people should take therapy, or is it like kind of unnecessary?
So it all depends on the person. You get what I'm saying?
Used against you?
Yes. I've been in therapy. I started therapy when I was 8.
Oh, wow.
So I've been dealing with mental health. I got several issues, and I had it in the 80s when it wasn't popular. You know what I'm saying? I've been in rubber rooms. I've been in tied down to a bed. I've been straight jacketed. I've been a shot, pitch you out for days, waking up, and they give you a bar of soap and tell you to go clean off the shit and piss at you. We're laying there for 2 days. Like, that's where I was coming up from. And today, we're finally talking about it. And so it all depends on the person and how they were thrown into the mix. You get what I'm saying?
thrown into the mix. Go into that, like maybe coming to terms with their mental illness or whatever. Is that what you mean?
Nowadays, the therapy's more real than it was back then. It was like an experimenting on us, especially as a child. You was an experiment, and they were learning as they were going in the late 80s, early 90s, you know. They just started realizing these things. I grew up, it's in your head, you can control it. And it's that chemical imbalance, we can't control it. I learned more through my sensei of controlling my emotions than I did in therapy. Like I said, it all depends on the person. When he came along with me, he taught me how to do some meditations. He taught me how to control emotions, like how to sink them in. And he taught me that my emotions are like my control.
What's one of the ways you were taught how to deal with your emotions? Because I feel like my generation, our biggest problem is controlling our emotions, controlling our impulses. And the way things are now, it's like you get taught to let your emotions and impulses like control you and let them guide you. And I feel like the more control you have over that, the better off you'll be. So like, what's one of the things you learned on how to
it all depends how you're raised. Like, I'm born in Gen X.
Right.
Not to be seen, not to be heard. You didn't matter. Your voice don't matter. As Gen X's start having kids, we told you guys that you guys' feelings is validated, but you need how to control your emotions. You need to, you know, your actions are your control. You know what I mean? You can't control how people make you feel, but you can control how you deal with things. I had to teach my kids these things, and it was hard to teach things when you didn't know how to do it yourself. You know what I mean? That's the mentality I grew up in. And respect was the number one thing. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't about what you had. It's respect. Respect was all you had. And I take that very seriously as of today. The only thing I would say to you is my faith told me that if you follow Jesus, we're kings and queens. If you think like a king, right, you're going to act like a king. You know what I'm saying? You're going to make judgments like a king. Things are bigger than you. I got a kingdom. My kingdom is the branch of my tree. I'm taking family traditions and family chains and the badness of a family that's known for going in and out of jail. I'm breaking those chains so my kids could be free. And that's hard to do, man. Like, that's very hard to do, especially when you're bipolar 2, schizo, and manic depressive with a lot of anxiety issues.
Let's be real. This album is a classic. This? Classic. If you disagree, tell me why. If you do agree, tell me why. Let's really get to the bottom of this, because I feel like it's a crime that an album this good goes unnoticed by the world. But yeah, I'm bad at outros, so I'm just gonna.
Baji World.
Nothing really special ever happens here, in this place, until she came along. Next thing I knew, I had things coming out of my head, and I had a robot living in my house. And well, a bunch of other weird stuff. Whatever. It's really not that big a deal.